is hold summits?
I think that right now the question is, do we all work for central bankers? That's what I want to address to our guest tonight. Is this global governance at last? Is it one world, the central bankers in charge? Jim Urio, you say we've got some downside here, a correction in the markets. Fine. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do? Aren't we all just counting on the fact that there's a Bernanke put and that we won't go any lower than, say, 5% down from here?
Well, of course we are, because if we look at the economic data, there's nothing to get excited about in that.
All right,
So yes.
Let's just stop right there. And they go on with all four guests admitting we're under global government and slave to bankers. But in our article, bankers declare they've conquered the U.S. and Europe. We've got clips of them saying they've conquered us and laughing about it, because they know you're watching the Olympics. They know you're watching Dancing with the Stars. They know you're watching America's Got Talent. They know you're watching, paint dry. Well, okay, I'm not saying you're bad that you are. But the point is, these criminals that make Bernie Madoff look like an angel are in control right now.
The Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
Words like violence break the silence, come crashing into my little world. Painful to me, it's right through me. Don't you understand? Oh, my little girl, all I ever wanted.
My friends, the United States and the rest of the world is being mopped up. We've already been captured to a great extent. But we're going into draconian authoritarian oppression because the ruling class, that happens to be private central bankers, they hired the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center the last 50 years to demonize anybody that pointed that out, including congressmen. They had people arrested in Europe that point that out. They have now openly themselves bragged, we have captured you through fraud. Now we're going to take over what's left. Now we're going to shut down your cities via Agenda 21 and carbon taxes. Ha, ha, ha. And now my military sources, but also in mainstream news, and my police sources are saying October, late October, early November, total collapse. Chicago Tribune saying that the federal government's getting the big 6 mega banks, 5 of them U.S., ready during a collapse to not have federal help. Just really incredible information. I have a video showing all these articles up at Infowars.com titled, U.S. Banks Told to Prepare for Total Collapse. That's up there, red linked at Infowars.com under it. I'm driving into work Friday and see a drone over 290. I got footage of it, got out, found the operator. It was TxDOT. You want to see that footage, it's up at Infowars.com. So these are proliferating so much now that I can't even drive to work. Of course, past that was a checkpoint on the road, too, for trucks, but it blocks the road. Just such a free country. So we're going to be going over all of that right before Max Keiser leaves us. Now, it's close to midnight over there in Europe on the continent where he joins us from. We're going to be going to him here in just a second to go over this. But here's the $64 million statement. If we do not identify the globalists as the culprits of this, they're going to continue the collapse because it's designed, they brag it is, to consolidate power as they pose as the saviors. So they're always busy telling you you're not in a recession or depression, but give us more power or you will be, as they walk us in to this system that they've bragged they're establishing. We'll talk to Max Keiser for the balance of this hour and as much of the next hour as he can do as we take phone calls in the next hour. But first, here's Ron Paul, just an excerpt. The full speech is up at Infowars.com. Ron Paul warns Americans of coming economic collapse. And he's getting into point 3 here. The dollar is inevitable to fail. Will other currencies fail first and then it? They're all tied to it, or will it fail first? Here is a few minutes of that, then we'll go to Max Keiser of MaxKeiser.com. Here it is.
It's impossible to predict the time when confidence will be lost, but it can come quickly. Resorting to buying other paper currencies will not be of much help. When the dollar crashes, most likely the purchasing power of all currencies, since all currencies hold dollars as a reserve, will go down as well. This means that dollars and other currencies will go into buying consumer items, precious metals, and other physical properties. Consumer prices will soar, as well as interest rates. The central and the pain on the American citizens will be of such proportion that political chaos will result. Either scenario leads to political and social chaos, the third event, and the most dangerous. With no ability of the federal government to fund its commitments, international or domestic, major changes will occur in our system. The social unrest will elicit cries for government to exert unusual force to head off a complete breakdown of law and order. The ultimate trap will be set for a system of government claiming to protect a free society. If more power and police authority are not given to the federal government, it will be argued that only anarchy will result. If more government policing power is given, it will mean a lethal threat to civil liberties. Already, we have permitted the notion that a single person, the Attorney General or the President, can decide who is an enemy combatant, thus denying that individual the right of habeas corpus, permitting indefinite detentions without charges made. This attitude towards civil liberties has changed significantly since the fear built around 9/11. Yes, I know, declaring one an enemy combatant is reserved only for the radical Muslims engaged in terrorism against the United States. To be reassured by this reasoning is quite dangerous and naive. Logic should not lead us to equate suspects with terrorists and include American citizens, and yet this has already been set by precedent. Under difficult circumstances, our political leaders will not be hesitant to use these powers to maintain order. Tragically, the people may even demand it. We are rapidly moving toward a dangerous time in our history. Society as we know it is vulnerable to political and social unrest. This impending crisis comes as a consequence of our flawed foreign and domestic economic policies, a silly notion about money, ignorance about central banking, and ignoring the onerous power and mischief of out-of-control intelligence agencies. Our unsustainable welfare state and a willingness to sacrifice privacy and civil liberties in an attempt to achieve safety and security from an inept government. Dangerous times indeed. What can be done about it? Must we wait for the inevitable and expect to restore our liberties in a street fight against the overwhelming power of the state? Not a good option. The only way that we can prevent blood from running in the streets is to offer a better idea of the proper role of government in a society that desires first and foremost liberty. And that is impossible without a firm commitment by our thought leaders to the ideas of freedom, the source of all creative energy and prosperity. An all-powerful state is the threat to that.
The all-powerful state is the threat. That's what America's built on. And Max Keiser, 3.5 years ago in the Obama deception, broke down exactly what would happen economically, and we've now seen it unfold. He'll be with us throughout the next hour. He joins us from the continent of Europe right now, normally of France. He's in Amsterdam right now. And, of course, Max Keiser is a filmmaker, broadcaster, former broker, and options trader. He is known for his invention of virtual specialist technology, a software system used by the Hollywood Stock Exchange, and a lot of the new systems are based on that. And for his accurate predictions of global economic events. He correctly predicted the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac breakdown and what happened in the Iceland's economy, and it just goes on and on. He's labeled J.P. Morgan the biggest financial terrorist on Wall Street. And he's got some breaking news on them, but we'll get to that when we start the next hour. We're going to break here in a few minutes, Max. You heard what Ron Paul was just talking about. It's now confirmed they're gearing up the military for every U.S. city and telling banks get ready for collapse, but telling the public everything is
on your show, remember you asked me to make a prediction when this global collapse is coming. I said on the outside, maybe 9 months, but even in those short few days since I spoke with you last, it seems like the drum beats are beating louder toward this idea of a global financial collapse. And the banking regulators are asking all the big banks around the world to come back to them with a worst case scenario. What do you have on your books, and how would you go through a collapse? And interesting, J.P. Morgan, of course, responded. They said that they've got a negative equity of about $30 or $40 billion on their books, so the entire $140 billion market cap would be gone in an Enron-like instant. Of course, they're totally plugged into the Fed and the Treasury, which would collapse the Fed and the Treasury and the U.S. dollar. So when Ron Paul talks about the collapse of the U.S. dollar, what you fill in here for those who are following this at home and want to get the whole playbook. First, we see the collapse of J.P. Morgan, then the collapse of the Treasury and the Fed, then the collapse of the dollar, brought about by J.P. Morgan's books, which have $90 trillion worth of what they call derivatives, basically claims that are impossible to ever fulfill. That's bigger than the entire gross domestic product of the entire planet Earth. $90 trillion, just one bank.
All right, now stay there, Max, because again, you're retired at a young age, former stockbroker, inventor of a lot of the modern systems they use today. But come back in layman's terms, even for our business listeners, break down the point we're reaching right now and why they've got armored vehicles being loaded off trains in every major city right now for the American people and the people of Europe. Why are they gearing up for total collapse? Can it be averted? Stay with us.